Battlefield 2042's latest Class Rework update, which was one of the top fixes requested by the community, has only marginally increased player interest. This suggests that new maps, weapons, and vehicle content is far more important to growing the player base versus reintroducing legacy systems. Back in December, when Season 3 launched with the fantastic Spearhead map and the new futuristic weapons, Battlefield 2042 saw its biggest player surge ever. And this wasn't because there was a massive overhaul to the game's foundation or huge quality of life updates, but rather because DICE made a very cool, interesting new map with fun weapons, vehicles, and cosmetics. We saw a similar, although not quite as dramatic surge with Season 1's exposure mapping content, and frankly, good new maps have always been the cornerstone of Battlefield updates, and it seems that 2042 isn't planning to match the pace of any of the previous games with its content rollout. And if the dev team doesn't have the ability to launch more brand new maps per season, it seems like DICE will only ever achieve equilibrium with this game and not player growth. And looking at the Steam charts surrounding the latest 3.2 update for the game, the player base saw a very tiny bump compared to what it saw in December, showing that when it comes to mass appeal and time spent in the game, players are much more interested in new content versus updated or tweaked content. Map reworks, balance updates, and older Portal weapons coming into the base game have little draw to the outsider. And while I do personally love the map reworks, they're much harder to market as new content since they're really just modified content that's been in the game for over a year. Unfortunately, they don't increase the game variety, they just improve upon what's already there. Historically, players have seen 3 to 4 new maps with seasonal content or their DLC content. And one of the more confusing aspects of 2042's design, to me anyway, is that the implementation of brand new biome assets like with Spearhead only get used for a single map. Looking at something like, say, Battlefield 5's Pacific DLC, it launched with 3 tropical island maps and then a 4th came later. All of them made use of the similar tropical island assets, but each offer different layouts and gameplay styles, effectively maximizing the usage of those initial assets, which probably took quite a while to develop. If Season 3's Battle of Nordvik had been a much bigger event spread across 3 to 4 maps in similar environments, but with different map layouts, I have no doubt that the interest would have surged much further and persisted for much longer. However, in the latest Inside Battlefield podcast, the developers made it clear that the live service team just simply can't deliver it all, and instead have to pick and choose between content and features. And although they didn't say this directly, I would imagine they had to make the choice of making more new maps or redesigning the old maps. Not a particularly easy choice, as both seem absolutely necessary to the long-term success of 2042. They also mentioned more about the upcoming reworks and reintroducing things like squad management features. Certainly good news when it comes to the quality of life updates for the game, but little to give me hope that the rate of new content will increase. They've more or less implied that the rate and style of seasonal content will remain consistent, which simply put isn't gonna cut it, at least not for growing the player base, and certainly not according to the data. When the new general manager of DICE Stockholm took charge last year, she spoke about redesigning the production team to be lean, allowing them to adapt and change course as needed, something that the studio absolutely lacked in the past. So if this new team now has data showing that Season 3 brought the biggest player surge since launch, I would personally be focusing all my efforts on recreating that and understanding that. The game is in a pretty good state when it comes to legacy features and quality of life issues that need immediate action, and the recent data with the 3.2 update suggests that one of the most demanded legacy feature updates for the game had minimal impact on player interest. Compare that to the cool new map, weapon updates, and well-crafted narrative tie-ins, which brought a huge amount of interest. In my opinion, the focus should now be full steam ahead on new content for the game, preferably building out more enjoyable narrative elements that make the world make sense or give it more context, as that was one of the cooler draws of Season 3. Now, of course, there's no question about it, the launch quality of 2042 has directly cut into the amount of live service content that we're getting, as new development time is getting split between fixing core issues and making new stuff. The parallels with Battlefield 5's post-launch support are kind of scary in this regard. However, even Battlefield 5's new map content far outpaced Battlefield 2042. A year after it was released, Battlefield 5 had already launched the Pacific DLC, its last major content update, and that update alone brought more new maps than 2042 has seen since launch. Let me repeat that statement in case it didn't sink in. That one Battlefield 5 update that dropped about a year after the game launched brought more brand new maps, full-size maps nonetheless, than Battlefield 2042 has seen since its launch, which is now further along than Battlefield 5 was at that same point in time. Plus, the Pacific DLC brought fantastic new maps, one of which was Iwo Jima, arguably one of the better maps in the game, and we even got a fantastic remake of Wake Island. The new content rollout for 2042 compared to the past games is insanely low, and even Battlefield 5's content rollout was considered slow compared to the games before it. I think DICE is doing the best that they can with making 2042 content go as far as it will, but honestly, there's only so much you can do with one map per season. The Battle of Nordvik event had us playing on Spearhead for like 3 weeks in a row, which is kinda crazy if you think about it. And without a doubt, a large part of DICE being able to make more maps in the past has been the reuse of environmental assets. And I'm not talking about reusing shipping containers. 2042 already has that covered in spades. Instead, I'm talking about just the environmental art and the biome styles. It's very confusing to me that 2042 has done so little of this. They have frozen biomes, desert biomes, mountainous, Nordic, tropical, and yet the game seems to feature like only one map per environmental style instead of making like 3 to 4 different maps such as the previous games would have done. Maybe that can be an angle that this leaner development team can pivot toward in the future. Now, to kind of end this video on a higher note, 2042's last year of development has turned an unfinished game into something that's way more fun and refined. It feels like a Battlefield game now, one with new and fun features not offered in previous titles. Now it just needs to deliver on the content aspect, and I think players will return like they did with Season 3. There's 2 more seasons of content that we know are coming, and there's very few legacy features left to fix. Will the devs stick with this game long enough after the fix-it phase has completely wrapped up so they can deliver more substantial content, or will it end before its time, as has unfortunately happened in the past? This quote-unquote new DICE is less predictable these days, and considering that they are trying to usher in a new era of Battlefield with Vince Zampella at the helm, it seems like a good play to try and lead into the next era of Battlefield on a high note by supporting 2042 as well as possible. What do you guys think with the current content rollout strategy? Personally, I think 2042's Season 3 launch was some of the best times in the game so far. It just didn't carry for as long as it should have, and now I'm wanting more. Would more new map content bring you back into the game on a regular basis? Let me know in the comments, and also check out my review of the 3.2 class update by clicking on the screen here. As always guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. This is LevelCap signing off.